A very good evening to all of you. I welcome you all to the ICANN initiative, the Hindu and Indian Express analysis. We will start the day with the personality of the day. So, today we'll be talking about Kame Gowda, and he was the person who even the Prime Minister Narendra Modi had mentioned in the recent June Man Ki Baat episode also. So, we will be talking about Kame Gowda. He is a resident of a village, small village in Mandya in Karnataka. So, what makes him special is that for 42 years, this person has dug 16 ponds in his village. So, at a time when all the existing ponds are being encroached upon in the urban areas and we are creating concrete jungles, and there is water scarcity, so we talk about going back to our roots and creating more ponds. This person has himself dug 16 ponds in the last 42 years in his village. So, his village used to be devoid of greenery, and it used to suffer from a lot of heat every year. So he's actually an illiterate shepherd. So he used to take his sheep grazing on the hillside, and where he used to see the animals and the birds, they were very thirsty, but there was no water, and whatever little rainfall happened there was no proper vegetation on the hill, so all the water just came down the hill slope, and whatever little was retained on the hill, and that also got evaporated. So these animals and birds, they were not finding water on the hill. So he could not see the poor and pathetic condition of these animals and birds, and that's when he decides that he is going to dig farms. So when he had to dig the first pond, he didn't have anything. So he sells some of his sheep and he purchases a shovel, spade, and a pickaxe. So from that he digs the whole pond so that the animals and birds in the region can survive. So after he digs the first pond, by the time he makes little amount of savings, and out of this he hires some workers who can help him out in this. And also he has designed these ponds so beautifully that all the 16 ponds are interlinked. So when the rain comes and the water gets collected in the highest pond, and when that pond gets filled, then the surplus water will flow to the next lower level pond. So all the ponds have been interlinked, and the surplus water will keep flowing down and down to the lowermost pond on the hill. So what this whole thing shows is that first, for a period of 42 years he has been digging this 16 ponds. So it shows the unrecognized and efforts of a person who has been so consistent and perseverant in his efforts to save the ecosystem. So he is truly an unsung hero who who didn't seek for any rewards or awards. He just felt for those birds and animals who he saw was parched and they were not getting water. And out of empathy and compassion for those creatures, he started digging these ponds without any expectation of any award in return. And he kept his efforts so consistent, and that was his passion towards conserving environment. And who knew that one day the prime minister of the country would mention his name in Man Ki Baat. So what it shows is his dedication for one particular cause, and his efforts and consistent efforts towards that without expecting any reward in return. So these qualities are some things which we have to develop even in our lives, that without expecting anything in return, we just have to show dedicated efforts towards whatever cause is dear to us. So with this, we will start the first topic of the day, which is economic impact of COVID-19. So this is just a small data related to the impact on the economy that the COVID-19 has caused. So in the in the April to June quarter, the GST collection this year has been 1.86 lakh crore. But in the same April to June quarter in last year, 2019, the GST collections were 3.14 lakh crore. So this shows that there was a 41% drop in the GST collections in the April to June quarter. And this is because of the COVID crisis and the associated the lockdown in the economy and the collapse of various businesses and economic activities. So this you can mention as a data regarding the revenue collection, which is an economic impact of the pandemic. So whenever it is asked what is the impact of the pandemic on the economy and on the society, So in the economy aspect, you can mention this data. Supporting your answers with such kind of data will add more value to your answer. Now we'll move on to the next topic, which is related to industrial safety or industrial disaster, which is also an aspect of disaster management. Even in the past, we have discussed industrial disasters, that is the LG polymer case we have discussed, and then we have discussed the catching of fire of oil well in Tinsukia district in Assam. So we have already discussed a couple of examples, and in the case of LG polymers, we have also seen what were the possible causes that led to such disasters. So how that those industrial disasters are actually caused. So now one more example of this industrial disaster has happened, in one in Tamil Nadu and the other in Andhra Pradesh. So in Tamil Nadu, in the Neyveli thermal power station, there was an explosion of the boiler. So because of which many deaths have also happened. And in Andhra Pradesh, it was a chemical leak from a pharmaceutical plant in Vishakhapatnam. So that has again led to deaths. So these two are other examples of industrial disasters that have happened. And as far as the Tamil Nadu case is concerned, where in the Neyveli thermal power station, the boilers have exploded. So this is created, the one thing related to this is there is already what is called as the Indian Boilers Act, because boilers are inherently very dangerous because there is high pressure steam and also superheated water. So this can cause very severe burns and injuries, and ultimately it could lead to death. So there is already an Indian Boilers Act so as to ensure proper regulation of the use of boilers in the industries. So on the first, it shows how this act has been poorly implemented, and that the use of boilers are not properly regulated so that their usage is safe. And second is that these boilers are such type of equipments which need to be operated by a trained personnel. So that is part of the occupational safety, so which demands that these boilers be operated by trained personnel. But however, even during the LG polymers case also, that is what we saw, that many times in order to cut the costs, these industries are employing some contract employers to operate such equipments. So this comes at a huge cost, where these contract employers, employees, they don't know how to safely operate such dangerous hazardous equipments, and that will lead to these type of accidents. So this shows how the cost cutting on part of the industries and employing of contract laborers to employ such dangerous equipments can lead to such huge hazard. So the next issue is about the staffing decisions that are made in these industries, and a poor regulation on part of that there is no regulation as to how the staffing decisions are made by these industries, and whether trained personnel are operating such hazardous equipments. So this is another thing. And the third thing is that as soon as this disaster happened, then the state governments and the central governments, what they usually do is to stem the public outrage. They announce compensation to the victim families. So this is a very short term measure that is usually taken, and once the public outrage is stemmed by announcing compensation, so after that and the case fades away, and hardly any step is being taken for the long term safety. So this should not happen, and the short term compensation should not blind us towards ensuring that in the future, in the long term, some safety and precautions are taken, and a good robust framework or a protocol for industrial safety should be put in place. So and fourth thing is that immediately there has to be an independent inquiry that should be conducted, and from this inquiry things should be established as to why on whose part there was negligence that it led to such a huge crisis, such a huge disaster. And then fifth is fixing the responsibility. So once the inquiry is conducted, the inquiry report has to be put in the public domain, and the fixing of responsibility should happen. So with whosoever negligence all these things have happened, responsibility should be fixed on them, and they must be made to be accountable for this disaster. And there has to be proper punishment that has to be inflicted upon people who are responsible for such incidents. And in the long term, sixth point is, in the long term we need to establish robust industrial safety protocols and mechanisms so that there is proper inspection as to whether these legislations and these guidelines are being followed or not, and there has to be compliance reports on all these, so that these industries don't operate without the requisite safety protocols. So this is about the industrial disasters. Now we'll move on to the next topic. So the next topic is an example for use of robots, and also a good example for how local self-governance, if these institutions are empowered, then how helpful it will be. So this is an example of Eravi Perur Gram Panchayat in Kerala. So it is Eravi Perur Gram Panchayat in Kerala. So what this Gram Panchayat has done is it has now deployed 2 robots which are called as Asha in the hospitals to treat the COVID-19 patients. And this is especially important for Kerala, where it is facing the threat of community transmission now. So this step was very important, and what these robots do is they will take medicines, even bed sheets and food, everything is taken to the patient in each hospital room, and this is going to avoid the contact between the healthcare personnel and the COVID-19 patient. So this is one thing how robots can be helpful in dealing with such contagious diseases like the COVID. And the second thing is that these robots will also help in real-time interactions between the patient's family and the healthcare facility. So this distance can be even 15 kilometers. Even in such cases, this robot will provide a real-time communication or interaction possible, because often the family is kept isolated, or the patient is isolated, and family hardly gets to know about the status of the patient unless the patient themselves report. So in this case, the robot also has a real-time interaction with the family members, so that they too are kept updated and their anxieties are also quelled related to the health status of the patient. So this is a very good thing about the robot. So this can be used as an example while you're talking about robotics and its applications in various fields. And we have already discussed a question based on what is robotics and what are its applications in various fields. So we have been able to list some 7 to 8 categories, and in each of these categories we have listed various applications. So you can use that for revision. And another example, the same example can also be used for talking about local self-governance. So we know that how Kerala has empowered its local self-governance bodies. So the Eravi Perur Gram Panchayat similarly is one such local self-governance institute. So when the funds, functions and functionaries are being properly provided to them, and how they can excel in various fields which have been allocated to them, and how they can end up providing good services to the citizens. So this says that this is not the first time that Eravi Perur is hitting the headlines. So this particular Gram Panchayat actually got the country's first national award for public administration also way back in 2015. This Gram Panchayat was the first in the country to receive this National Award for Public Administration in 2015. And also it was the first Panchayat in the state of Kerala to get an ISO certification for its primary health center. So this shows how efficiently the LSG institutions can deliver services to the citizens when they have been truly empowered. So this Eravi Perur Gram Panchayat can be used as a case study to show how true empowerment really helps. So now we'll go to the next topic, which is about food security. So on this topic also, we have already discussed what is food security, what is the role of FCI, and regarding the PDS system in the country, what are the flaws or ills that are plaguing the PDS system, what reforms are required. All of that we have already discussed in detail. So in this particular article, we'll only be just looking at some data. So this article says that, yes, first of all, before that, you must know that there is something called as Pradhan Mantri Garib Kalyan Ann Yojana. So under this, government was giving 5 kilograms of food grains free of cost to nearly 80 crore families. And this was supposed to be given till the end of June. But now government has decided that these free grains are going to be given to people till the end of November. So this has been now extended. So this is Pradhan Mantri Garib Kalyan Ann Yojana. So now what the data we'll be talking about is why is it a wise decision to extend this, because we have a lot of stocks at our FCI godowns. So Food Corporation of India has these stocks of rice and wheat which it procures from the public under the by giving them the minimum support price. So under this, FCI had a stock of nearly 73.85 million tons. So this is about nearly 3.5 times whatever is the reserve requirement. So whatever the FCI is supposed to maintain the stock levels, so that multiplied by 3 times is this much. So we had huge amount of stocks, 3.5 times what is actually required to be maintained. So that is why Government of India decided that it is a wise decision to offload this stock. So this can also help people during the crisis period by giving them food grains free of cost. And now one might argue that when food grains are given free of cost, it will lead to economic loss because food grains are now being given free of cost. But at the same time, we must understand that when these food grains are kept in the FCI godowns, related to the storage, there will be some interest cost, in payment of interest will be there, and there will be some storage charges. So all of these would also matter a lot. Now for giving free food grains till the end of November, government will be amount of food grains that will go into doing this is nearly 32 million tons. If 32 million tons of food grains were to be actually stored in the godowns, then the interest and the storage costs would itself come to about 7,200 crore. So at least by now offloading this much amount of food grains, 32 million tons of food grains, by giving it free of cost to people till the end of November, at least we are saving on 17,200 crores, which would have otherwise gone for the interest and the storage costs that are involved in storing this much amount of food grains. So this is the data that you should know, that this is the stock limit of 73.85 million is the stock amount that we have, which is 3.5 times the stock requirement. So we need to offload the stocks, and there is Pradhan Mantri Garib Kalyan Ann Yojana, under which free food grains will be given till the end of November. That will lead to offloading 32 million tons, and that is going to save us 17,200 crores, which would have otherwise gone into the interest and storage costs of this much amount of food grains. So now there were many articles, other editorials in the newspaper, but they didn't have any good content in them. So this police reform was related to again the custodial death in Tamil Nadu. So this again, there was nothing new in this, and this was related to Assam's inclusive ethos. It recently Assam government has ordered that Assam as a language is compulsory to be taught in all the government schools, and this only some tribal areas have been exempted from this, but otherwise Assam language has been made compulsory. So the whole article was on this particular order, which was not very relevant. And taming the digital dragon is how we have imposed a ban on 59 Chinese apps. So this is not a way to tame the Chinese dragon. So that is what this whole article was, and it mainly focused on the legality. That is, when we have banned the 59 apps from China, we have only got the there is no legal order that we have got that these have to be banned. So that has not been put up in the public domain, and it's also not the right way to fight the China. So there was nothing in this whole article. Then reforming India's digital policies, again now because of the pandemic, in this era and in the post-COVID era, the digital services are going to play an important role, because people will still be apprehensive, they will still be scared to travel and meet in person. So a lot of businesses are going to shift to the digital or on the internet. So in that case, the digital services are going to play a very important role in the post-COVID world. So for that, India should reform its digital policy. But it doesn't talk how this reformation should be done or anything. So there is not much substance in this whole article. It just says we need to reform, and given that we already have a very good IT sector, so we will have a good potential to provide digital services to the world. But apart from that, nothing in this article. And And this not fair but how lovely, it just talks about the color of the skin and how we have been so habituated to wanting a fair skin. So it talks how Fair and Lovely advertisements show how a fair skinned person is shown as to be more successful. So it talks about one advertisement where the father of the daughter, he is feeling sad that he should have had a son. Then the daughter uses Fair and Lovely, she becomes fair, and then she becomes successful and makes her father proud. So all of this is conveying a very wrong message as to fair skin is leading her to be successful, and that is making her father proud, and the father feels that it's okay to have a daughter, not necessarily a son, because a fair skinned daughter can also be successful. So it is actually sending out a wrong message, and mostly the article is about this, not much substance. This article was also about how the pandemic is changing the global order, regarding China, regarding the importance of cyber world, so all of that. So nothing again important. In Oli's bluster, this article was about the Nepal's Prime Minister, Oli, who is now demands are on that he should resign in Nepal, and he is blaming India, that India is making things, is manipulating things, and that is why people are demanding his resignation in Nepal. So this is the whole article was about that how it is got nothing to do with India, and how he is blaming India for his own faults and failures. So again, nothing from exam point of view. And Ayurveda deserves better, it just says about Patanjali's recent the kit that he launched, which was without any regulatory approvals, that was launched. So that has disturbed Ayurveda. But however, there are several other practitioners who go by the scientific knowledge, and so the whole Ayurveda as a system of medicine should not be discredited merely because some people do like this. So nothing again from exam point of view. Unlocking the house, it talks about Article 85 of the Constitution, which says that within a maximum gap of 6 months, the house has to be convened, has to be summoned. So therefore, in this era of pandemic, we need to unlock the house and we need to call back the meeting. So we can adopt any one of the models. Like one model is just hold the meetings online, and another is to call the meeting of the house, or we can adopt a hybrid model where some are in the house and some to joining the virtual way. So that we have again already discussed it before. So again, nothing in this article. So like this, mostly today there wasn't any good editorial, so to say. So whatever was important we have discussed. We'll be discussing yesterday's question. So the question was about the reasons for a skewed sex ratio in India. So skewed sex ratio is particularly the child sex ratio or sex ratio at birth. So for that, first you have to give a few data in the beginning as an introduction to support that yes, there is a skewed sex ratio. So you can say that in 1961, our child sex ratio was in 1961 it was 976 per 1000 boys, and then came the 1991 to 2001, in that the child sex ratio was 927, and then in 2001 it was 914, and now again it has fallen. So there has been a decline in the child sex ratio. And there was this sample registration survey which is done by the Ministry of Statistics and Program Implementation. So it shows that in 2015 to 17, the child sex ratio has declined to 896 actually, and in 2014 to 16 it was 898. So in 15 to 17 it has already declined to 896, which is a very bad number. So by showing this data, you can say that we have a skewed sex ratio in the country. So then we will come to the reasons. So reasons, again, it is a 10 marker question. Try to elaborate more, try to write more number of reasons with less elaboration for each reason. So you can say the first is a patriarchal societies, where families want a male child, a son, rather than a daughter. So this patriarchal society has a tendency to kill the girl child when they are born. So that is one thing. Then you have female feticide. So the female, if we know that the fetus is a female, then that is usually killed. And that is also happening because of one another related reason, which is the access to technology like ultrasound has improved. So now people don't have to wait till the birth of the child to discover whether it is a girl or a boy. So they can rather get an ultrasound and discover the gender of the child. And if it is known to be a girl child, then it is immediately aborted. So Amartya Sen calls this as high-tech sexism in India. So high-tech sexism, it is called by Amartya Sen, that by knowing the gender of the fetus in the womb, the parents decide to abort the child if it is a girl child. So access to high technology. Then you have female infanticide. So female infanticide is wherein being an infant, the female infant dies because of poor nutrition, poor care, because those of the people, poor people who don't have access to technology, will discover that it is a girl child only after the child is born. So that's when they decide to give poor nutrition to the girl child, they starve her to death. So that is the female infanticide. As an infant, the child dies. And then you can talk about again poverty. Due to poverty, it's one of the factors that is responsible for this, and a lot of girls are denied their nutrition. In poverty, if there is one male child and one female child, the preference is always given to the male child. So good nutrition is always preferred, given to the male child. So then in that case, the female child will suffer, and poverty is thus a cause of this. And then social status of women. So the social status of women is so bad that they are always considered a burden in the family rather than a person who can contribute to the economy of the family also. So the poor social status is itself a contributor. And then you can also say that the very fact that there is a sharp rise in violence against women. So this is again a factor that many families don't want a girl child. In fact, many people, there was this study that was done by Center for Social Research in Haryana. So Center for Social Research has done a study in Haryana where what came out prominently is that people don't want girls because they feel it is very difficult to keep them safe. So there is a fear of violence if it is a female child. So that is also another reason why they fear keeping the female child safe, and that is another reason why people don't want female children. So that is one more thing. And eighth is you can say maternal health and maternal mortality. So because of the poor status again, and because of poverty, various issues, child marriages are also happening still. So when at the age when women gets married, even irrespective of age also, the health of the mother is very poor. So they don't gain weight during pregnancy, they are not given proper nutritious food. So because of all this, the mother itself is chronically undernourished, and when she gives birth to babies, then she will also die and the baby is also going to die. So the maternal health again is very poor in India, particularly among the poor households. So that again will lead to the death of the child. So this is one more reason. And education is also one more important determinant. So data shows that in those states where the educational attainment of the family of the mothers is more, then the child sex ratio has also improved. But where the education is poorer, so there the families don't understand the importance of the girl child, and that's where more such female deaths, child deaths are going to happen. So education is also another determinant. So like this, just quote around 6 to 8 reasons with 1 or 2 lines of explanation. Where you have data, you can quote it, but don't overdo it. So just mention the main points and mention the initial introduction, talk about things which reinforce the fact that yes, there is a decline. And as a part of conclusion, you can quote some government measures like Beti Bachao, Beti Padhao, Sukanya Samriddhi, then PCP NDT Act. All of these are being done by the government to ensure that we can arrest the decline in the child sex ratio. And then you can also suggest some way forward, what do we need to do in the future. So access to technology, that has to be restricted, and the sex selective abortions, we must crack down on them heavily. So like that, some way forward you can give, and you can end your answer. And as we have seen that today not much useful editorials were there, and whatever was important, on industrial disasters, on food security, on robots and local self governance. So, we have already taken up a lot of questions on all these and we have discussed these areas holistically. So, today I won't be giving you any question. So, enjoy your weekend. You don't have to brainstorm or write any answer. Use your time, utilize it well for thorough revision. We have also completed 3 months, so use this time for completing the revision of all the 3 months. So that's it. Thank you.